And with Venom The Last Dance establishing Knull as Sony's next big bad for the Marvel Cosmos, let's go ahead and dive into exactly who the character of Knull is from the comics, because he's kind of a big deal. Now, before the Big Bang happened in the cosmos, there were absolutely no stars or sources of light in the universe, so the entire universe was nothing but cold darkness. But just because the universe was dark as hell, doesn't mean this primordial void was without living beings in it. In fact, this dark domain had its own god, and this dark god was just chilling in this void, having himself a nice nap in the fetal position until blah 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 blah! Here comes the Big Bang, being noisy and bright as hell as it filled the universe with light. But this light did not come alone, of course, but with that light came the extra-dimensional Celestials, the color-coded cosmic colonizers who saw this darkness as free real estate in order to grow and expand their multiverse of light on behalf of the cosmic entities Infinity and Eternity. Now, imagine you were taking a nap in your own house and some assholes decided to wake your ass up with a huge explosion before tearing down all of your shit and redesigning your house to their liking. That's some rude ass shit, right? And Knull, the nappy god, thought so too. And so, like any cranky old man, Knull was like, "Get the hell off my lawn, you damn hooligans." But the Celestials were like,
"Whoa, calm down, Jamal. Don't pull out the 9.
But pull out the 9 with the silent K, Knull did, by making a crude sword out of his own shadow and using that dark sword to completely slice off the celestial dome off of one of these colonizers. And the Celestials were like, "Oh my god, he killed Kenny," and decided to banish Knull deep into the void so that they can continue filling the universe with light and peace. And after that, Knull had two choices. He could either ignore what the Celestials did and sit there in the void and sulk for all eternity, or he could use this celestial head that he chopped off earlier to his advantage and keep it real. And keep it real, Knull did, with his first step being to hop into the skull of this dead celestial and redecorate its insides to make himself a nice little forge area powered by the latent celestial energy still inside of this head. And using that celestial forge, he would empower that shadow blade that he made earlier with incredible cosmic power, calling his finished Necrosword all black. And this all black Necrosword is actually regarded as the very first symbiote in the Marvel Universe, mostly because of how the sword would gift its wielder incredible power so long as its wielder fulfilled its need to devour as many delicious souls that it could find. A truly symbiotic relationship. However, this very bright and violent act of Knull forging this first ever symbiote had a long-lasting effect on the symbiote race that would eventually come a little bit after this, as all of the symbiotes would seemingly develop a weakness towards both sound and fire as a result of the violent trauma that this original all-black symbiote sword suffered at the hand of a vengeful Knull. And it's pretty much why Spider-Man has been able to use both super loud sounds, like the sounds that come from a church bell, or just plain old fire to defeat Venom symbiotes in the past. And so, with his newly improved sword, Knull would start to keep it real throughout the cosmos by trying to feed All Black with the souls of as many gods of light that he could find in his quest for vengeance, leaving behind the severed celestial head to float in space to eventually become known as Nowhere, a cosmic space station used by a number of alien races for scientific purposes. Cosmo the Space Dog in the comics was actually in charge of the station for a bit. However, Nowhere's repurposing is a little bit different in the MCU, as we know that the Collector and his organization called the Tavon Group would claim the celestial head for their own in order to extract the godly potential inside of its brain tissue and spinal fluid for profit. But anyways, after countless millennia of Knull becoming a butcher of light gods, he would one day eventually meet his match when one of these gods of light would stab Knull in the mouth as Knull would stab him in the upper torso, and their bodies would then crash land onto a nearby barren and nameless planet, only for their immobilized bodies to be discovered by an alien man named Gore, who was incredibly upset with the gods of light for letting his entire family die from the harsh conditions of his planet. And in his rage, Gore would pull All Black out of the torso of the light god and use that sword to finish off the light god himself, officially becoming Gore the God Butcher. Gore would of course leave Knull's body there in the crater to heal itself over time, and when Knull got back up, that dude was pissed as hell that his main weapon against the light had been stolen from him. So again, Knull had another choice to make. He could either sit on that planet and cry about the loss of his emo knife, or he could get his ass up and keep it real, and you already know that Knull went with option 2, because that's what the silent K in Knull stands for. It stands for keeping it real, man. And so Knull got his ass up and realized that he could actually take a piece of his inner primordial darkness and bond that darkness with a living host, extracting not only their life force energy, but also the memories inside of these living beings in order to gain crucial bits of information. And once he learned this power to bond darkness with living beings, Knull decided to do so across the entirety of Gore the God Butcher's home planet, converting that planet into a dark planet of a new race of beings that he would call the symbiotes. And sitting his ass down on his new fancy symbiote throne, Knull officially became the symbiote King in Black, a king who would send his symbiote army, which included badass symbiote dragons, to search galaxy after galaxy for light gods to kill, using his connection with these symbiotes to experience all the godly carnage that they wrought throughout the cosmos, until one day Knull would detect the presence of a god on a 6th century Earth, not knowing that this god was actually the Asgardian god of thunder, Thor Odinson. Thinking that he would just best Thor as easily as his army bested so many other gods in the past, Knull would be literally shocked to find that Thor had that sauce that made him the boss. Specifically when Thor sent a powerful surge of lightning into one of Knull's symbiote dragons. But this shock did not just affect that one dragon, oh no. This shock actually traveled across the perfect hive mind that Knull had built and radically severed Knull's connection to all of the symbiotes that he made, allowing for the symbiotes to think for themselves for the very first time in their lives. These free symbiotes would then go on to symbiotically bond with other random living beings throughout the cosmos, and because of these new bonds with these beings of light, the free symbiotes started to adopt some of the moral ideals, like nobility and honor, from their light being hosts, with these good ideals apparently infecting them much like a poison. And eventually, the symbiotes would use their new perspective to orchestrate a mutiny on their former master Knull, with a horde of symbiotes then using their own bodies to trap Knull in a planet-sized prison of pure symbiote goo, and naming that prison Kilntar, which was actually the symbiote word for cage. And over time, Kilntar would be known as the symbiote homeworld, despite it actually secretly being a prison for their former god. But unfortunately, a few centuries later, in the pages of 2019's Absolute Carnage number 5, Knull would be freed by Eddie Brock after Cletus Cassidy and the Carnage symbiote gave Eddie the choice of choosing between the death of his son Dylan or the release of the King in Black from the Kilntar cage. A newly freed Knull would then hop on a symbiote dragon and lead his symbiote horde to terrorize the cosmos once more, even managing to attack and infect the Celestials themselves, adding them to his army as well. And since Earth's guardians were the reason why he was imprisoned in the first place, Knull pretty much beelined it straight to Earth with his infected Celestials with him in 2020's King in Black number 1, with the Avengers pretty much powerless to stop him at first. I mean, hell, the Avengers even sent Sentry, the most diesel dude on the Marvel hero roster, after Knull's ass, but even he was easily defeated by him. Like, Knull literally broke that crazy motherfucker in half like a fortune cookie and slurped the Void right out of Sentry's body. Mostly because the Void entity within Sentry was made out of the same primordial darkness that the Cosmic King in Black commands. Then after this, Knull would cover the entire planet Earth in darkness and things would go to absolute shit. That is until, towards the end of the King in Black comic event, Eddie Brock and Venom would be gifted with the nigh omnipotent cosmic powers of Captain Universe by the God of Light themselves, and would use those powers to kill Knull by flying his ass into the center of Earth's sun. And after defeating Knull, Eddie Brock would be awarded the title of the new King in Black of the symbiotes and would control all the symbiotes in the universe for a while until he would eventually lose that crown. But speaking of this King in Black title, what does it mean exactly? Well, it turns out the reason why Knull was able to manipulate the primordial darkness so easily is because it was kind of his cosmic purpose to do so. Because when the Celestials first approached Knull right after the Big Bang, they weren't just there to ruin Knull's life, but they were actually there to offer Knull the job of the Cosmic King in Black, an entity that was specifically meant to help maintain and safeguard the multiverse through his mastery of all things darkness. However, before the Celestials could communicate this fact to Knull, Knull straight up attacked them. And so the Celestials were like, wow, this guy kinda sucks, and then threw his ass into the void and told him to fuck off. However, after Knull's death, Eddie Brock would lean into the King in Black role hardcore and would spend a few months in outer space protecting the universe with his unlimited army of symbiotes. But yeah, this all being said, since Knull is the current King in Black in the live-action Marvel Universe, this means that he too is a god that has absolute control over all symbiotic dark matter beings of all kinds. And if Knull manages to cross over into Marvel Studios' MCU proper, this means that dark symbiotic entities like Peter's Venom symbiote, the Black Knight's Ebony Blade, the Void Within Sentry, and possibly even the Scarlet Witch herself could all be used in service of his conquest. But whether or not Marvel Studios is involved with Sony's Knull plans has yet to be seen. But if this ends up being the case, thank God Thanos destroyed the Ether Reality Stone, because that Infinity Stone is directly tied to the Primordial Darkness as well, as the Ether was actually forged into a weapon by Malekith in the same way that Knull created All Black out of his own shadow. Though technically, I'm pretty sure Knull could probably form his own Ether himself by just grabbing some more darkness and just forging that into another dark Infinity Stone. But let's just not give this man any more murderous ideas, because he's already powerful enough as it is.